So if everything's working right, we're recording. All right, you guys ready online? All right, you guys ready here? All right, today is Wednesday, July 26, 2023, and this is my little Bible study. And we are finally back in the book of Genesis. We're picking it up with Jacob in chapter 32. All right, Genesis is a pretty big book, and we're getting quite a ways through it. We're getting ready to hit where Joseph goes to Egypt, and that's the last section of the book of Genesis. All right, and that's some of the best stuff that's in there. Now, something I want to remind everybody of, when we're talking about these people, all right, they're referred to often as people, but the promise to Abraham is what's Abraham mean? It means father of many nations, right? The promise to Israel is national status. Remember what the angel told Rebekah when she was pregnant with Jacob and Esau? He said, you're there fighting. From the time that they were conceived, they fought. And he said, within your womb, you have two nations. The subject in the book of Genesis is status as a nation. Okay, that's a really important thing to kind of keep in mind. Now, as you go back all the way to Hagar, remember, she was the woman that God told her, I'll prosper your seed. This sounded a lot like what she said to Abraham. I mean, flat out, a lot like it. You won't be able to count on, all that stuff. And this is a woman that he was talking to. I should have brought that up, and I didn't even bring her up. And that one about women. But anyway, and these women that were participating in these things, they understood when they were talking about, no, you take my handmaid and you bear children on your knees for me. Well, they understood that they were talking about in the end that this was some big stuff. This wasn't just some little bitty thing just to make Abraham happy. That there was a promise from God. And you got to remember, all these women were standing around when these things were said. They were right there with them, and conceived in the provinces themselves. All right, so now we're picking it up with Jacob. Well, Jacob and Esau. We're going to have to finish some more of their story anyway. All right, we'll pick it up in 32, verse 1. Now, Jacob's afraid. Let's just start there, all right? It starts, and Jacob went on his way, and the angel of God met with him. This is getting to be kind of a family tradition, right? Abraham's had the angel of the Lord meet with him. Isaac, same thing. Now Jacob, all right? And when Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's host. And he called the name of the place Mahanaram, which means the camping of the two camps. Think about this. You got one camp for Jacob and another camp for God's hosts that are there with him. A good name for it. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, unto the land of Seir in the country of Edom. That means the red here, and that's Esau's people. That's one of the primary tags for his people. Verse 4, and he commanded them, saying, thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau. Thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. Remember the trouble we had with Laban? And I have oxen and asses and flocks and manservants and womanservants. And I have sent to tell my lord that I might find grace in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee with 400 men with him. That's an army right there, buddy. It's 400 men. That sounds, I remember what was Esau's promise. What did he say? Why they split up and he went all the way to Pandamaram in the first place was Esau had already told him flat out, when dad's dead, I'm killing him. All right, so he remembers that stuff. It sounds like he's taking it pretty seriously, right? But this number 4, of course, 4 in biblical numerics means the earth. Everything about the earth is divided into 4s. We have 4 quarters, 4 seasons, the 4 winds. All right. So anytime you see that number, you mean earth. So he's got an army of people that are wound up into the flesh, let's say, just like Esau was. Right? He had no respect for God's promises in the first place. All right? Verse 7, and Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 bands. All right? Strategic importance. He's worried about getting completely wiped out. He's thinking if I split them into 2 and he kills half of them, well, I got half of them can live. All right? I'm kind of an all-in or all-out guy. That's why keep them together. We kill all Esau's people and go on our merry way. And that's just me. All right. But he's thinking strategically. I don't know why he chooses to. He has all of God's promises with all those things made to him. He should just stand firm, I would think. All right. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saith unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy for the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff have I passed over this Jordan, and now I have become two bands. All right. Verse 11, deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother. All right. And from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. He's worried Esau is going to come and wipe out his entire family. All right? These things, this man's built his life based around these kids. All right? Everything that he understands to be true is based around these. It's going to be 12 boys. There's only 11 right now. There's a girl. There's still 12 of them right now, but one of them's a girl. And she's going to get in trouble in a couple of chapters. All right. But nonetheless, so Jacob's just genuinely afraid for his family. So that's a hard decision to figure that out. How you're going to divide your kids up. All right, who's going to go with who? He got 4 wives, 11 boys, and a little girl. All right, we're going to find out here in a minute. You're going to see exactly how Jacob favors which wives too. You'll see here. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good, and make thee seed as the sands of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there the same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau's brother. All right, so he's took everything that he's had now, and now he's divided out some stuff for Esau. All right, 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milch camels with colts, 40 kine, 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 foals, half of them the kids. Okay? And he divided them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and he said unto his servants, pass over before me and put a space betwixt drove and drove, right? So he's dividing these up into groups, right? And he's setting each one of these sets of animals with each one of these groups. All right. Verse 17, and he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asked thee, saying, whose art thou, and whither goest thou, and whose are these before thee, then thou shalt say, they be thy servant Jacob's. All right. And it is a present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold, also, he is behind us. All right, so he set this up pretty good right now. So each group that appears says the same message and presents them with presents. All right. Now, I think Jacob's being pretty gracious, considering this man's threatened to kill him. All right, maybe his brother or not. And this Bible deals with some tough stuff sometimes, right? Now, his brother's threatened to kill him, and he's trying to buy peace, is what it's coming down to. All right, and it's going to work. Okay, but I want you to go back. Remember, he was praying. Remember the thing that he prayed to God? He said, I want peace between me and my brother. I'm scared, and I don't want anything bad to happen. All right, because he's going to tell him something here in a minute. That I'm going to bring that back up. Verse 19, and so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the drove, saying, on this manner shall you speak unto Esau when you find him. All right. And they say, moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with presents that go before me, and afterwards I will see his face. Peradventure, he will accept me. All right? So he's just trying to make peace with his brother. So he's offering him a peace deal. Really what it is, a pretty good one too. I mean, it ain't like Esau really needs a lot of stuff. We'll get to that here in a minute, right? All right. So when the present was over before him, and himself lodged that night in the country. All right? So now we're all set up. He's sit there, and he got all of his 400 with him. All right, now listen to this. And he rose up that night, this is Jacob, and took his 2 wives and his 2 woman servants, which he means his other 2 wives. Let's just get that straight, what that actually is. All right? And the 11 sons, and passed over to ford Jabbok. 23, and he took them and sent them over the brook, and sent them over that he had. And Jacob was left alone. All right, so Jacob has taken his entire family and set them across on the brook on the ford. All right, and he's the only one that's left over there. Now listen to what it says. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. Now you're going to find out later this is God, okay, that he's actually wrestling with. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, this is God, or this is Jacob, that he prevailed not against him, this is God. He couldn't beat Jacob and he couldn't get him to quit. All right? And this kid, think about this. I mean, I'm sure God knows some pretty crazy jiu-jitsu. I mean, he got a really knee, rear naked choke. I'm sure he's got a squeeze, make your head pop right off. All right? But he's having a hard time with Jacob. Remember, Jacob's pretty much a hoss. You remember the scene at the well? They had a big well. It took 3 different groups of men to move it, and he did it by himself. And no wonder they liked him. And he's a stud. All right? And he's wrestling with God, and he's not quitting. All right? Whatever he gets pinned, he gets back up, and he continues on. Now, I don't understand the meaning of why a wrestling match, all right? But it's kind of a neat concept. I mean, you got this guy here fighting with the Creator, all right? And he's holding his own. That says a lot about Jacob's mindset, because I'm sure he's going to get hurt real bad. Listen to what it says. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, all right, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. Now, the Jews say when he touched it that it shrank the sinew itself, all right? That's painful. I've had problems with nerves in my neck and things like that. When your nerves are hurting, that is a pain that doesn't quit. You can't adjust your position. You can't stand up. You can't lay down. It's just there the whole time. Medication doesn't work really good for it. I mean, it's just a bad kind of pain, right? Now imagine, he's still not quitting, right? And Jacob was left alone. Wrestled with him, right? 26. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thee bless me. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. All right? He knows real well who he is. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. All right? For as a prince thou shalt power with God and with men, and have prevailed. And that's what Israel means, is the prince that prevailed with God. Okay? Pretty big name change, right? And Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? Question. What he's saying is, Jacob, buddy, whatever you ask in my name, you're going to get. Okay? Now, who else said that? Almost that exact same thing. When he was talking to those that would testify in the last days. Anything you need, it's already ready. It's already prepared. Just ask. Right? All right? Same thing. Here you got God saying the exact same words the Messiah used when he's with Jacob is what he's talking about to the election in the book of Revelation. All right? So that should give you some security. All right, now. Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is that? We did that. And he blessed him there. All right? So there he Jacob got his blessing, the one that he held out for, the one that got him a limp the rest of his life, most likely. He always would have hobbled around after this, no matter how big the guy was, right? And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life was preserved. Remember, Moses kind of said the same thing, right? Whenever he went up on the mountain with God, and so I had a face to face with God. I'm still alive, because the way it's, flesh and blood cannot enter the kingdom of God. So something had to happen for Moses to be up there with him, and we'll get into that another day, another time. But anyway, verse 31. And he said, and as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Why? Because it hurt. All right, he's limping around. He's having a hard time getting around. And therefore the children of Israel eat not the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, until this day. And when you get to looking at the biblical tradition, that's the one that the priest wanted. That's the one that they got to really be greedy for, like in the New Testament. All right? Because it's kind of a misconception about sacrifices, unless it was a whole burnt offering, and there's only, I think, 7 of them. All right? unless it's a whole burnt offering, it was almost all consumed between either the person offering the sacrifice, the priest, and then in many cases they could sell the rest of it, or at least the priest could. He could sell his portion because he could do 500 sacrifices. He did 500 legs. That's no wonder they had butcher shops. All right, but nonetheless, so the priest got to really lusting after that one. They call it the prime cut is the way they look at it. And if you go to a kosher butcher shop, when you have that left leg, you'll still to this day have that vein or that nerve taken completely out of it, all because of this what happened here to commemorate this. All right, let's see. Let's go on to the next chapter. So 33, because this is where it gets kind of dicey just for a minute. Now, remember what he had said. After Jacob got his name changed, he told him, anything you need, you ask it in my name and it's yours. All right? Remember what he was praying about just before that? He was saying, I'm scared of my brother. I'm afraid he's going to kill my family. I want peace. Okay? Remember all that. Now listen to what it said. Talk about God doesn't answer prayers. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men, that army, a flesh army that's with him, right? And he divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the two handmaids. And this is where you find out this got to hurt some of these girls. This had to sting just a little bit. Now listen to what happens. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost, back there with him. All right, now tell me that's not the order that he loves these women and these children. All right, he had to make a choice. All right, he took all the handmaids, put them out there first for those kids. Then came his first wife next, and then the one that he loved the most. And he didn't really make any bones about saying it. He said he loved Rachel the most. All right? And then the one son that they had together, Joseph, stuck him right there with him. All right, so, like I said, these poor girls, I mean, that had to sting a little bit no matter what. Where you sit in that line, that had to sting. What do you mean? I can see dinner would have been rough that night. That would have been some tense kind of supper. Anyway, no wonder they had different tents. Woo! I don't even want to do that. Anyway, let's just take with one wife. That's plenty. You don't need blah, 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 blah. Anyway, yeah, but nonetheless, like I said, that had to sting a little bit. And he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. All right, I'm sorry. Right now, he needs to. He's overdone it. Look, he has handed all these presents into him. Now he's bowing and showing us. If you remember, he's the one that got the blessing and the birthright. All right? By rights, it should be the other way around. It was already said that the older brother was going to serve the younger. All right? It could have started right there. But like I said, he's worried. That's understandable. He's got 11 boys and a little girl he's actually probably pretty worried about, all right? With a man that swore to kill him. All right? And he passed over before and bowed to the ground. Never mind. Verse 4, and Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. All right? So, he was worried about him killing him, but God told him anything you want that you ask. Yes, he did just praying just before about it. He needed peace with his brother, and as soon as his brother shows up with the army, as soon as he sees him, all right, there's peace between brothers. It sounds a lot like, if you remember back in the book of Exodus, we had a lot of this going on. God was affecting Egypt the same way. At one point he said, they're going to give you all this stuff. All right? He said, but before I'm done, they're going to ask you to leave with it. And sure enough, that's exactly how it went down. I mean, at one point they're saying, here, take all this. And then the next minute they're crying and saying, no, take all your stuff and get out. And it was exactly the way God told them it would go down. All right. Verse 5, and he lifted up his eyes and he saw the woman and the children and said, who are these that are with thee? And he said, the children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaids came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves, and after came Joseph near and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, what meanest thou by all this drove which I met? What's this monkey show about? What are you doing? All right, and he said, these are to find grace in thy sight, my Lord. He didn't butter that up even at all. He ain't hiding what the point was. It wasn't, he didn't hide. No. You wanted to kill me? I'm hoping this buys peace between us. And it did. All right? And Esau said, I have enough. What's it? Then he said, what means to find grace in thy sight? And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that, hast thou unto thyself. And Jacob said, nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I have seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. He's like, please just take it. Okay, I want to make sure. That kind of reminds me of Abraham. Remember how Abraham was about the cave at Machpelah? He was holding out. He wanted the deed. He needed to make sure it was right. That just kind of reminds me of the same kind of thing. Because Esau's tried twice to give him back his stuff, and he keeps saying, no, you just keep it. All right? Verse 11, take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he heard him, and he took it again. All right? Well, that was the second time. And he said, let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and the herds are young with me, and if a man should overdrive them one day, all the flocks will die. All right? He goes, let me leave a couple people with you. All right? I'm thinking Jacob just doesn't want spies in his camp. Is really what I'm still thinking. I mean, that's the way I would think about it. No, go ahead. We'll be right behind you. That's basically what he's telling him. No, go ahead. I'm running with little kids, and they're all having babies right now. It's going to take us a little while. You go on. We'll catch up with you. So he does. All right. Verse 14, let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord unto Seir. And Esau said, let me now leave with thee some of the folks that are with me. Well, that's where he's going to leave them. See, I'm being bad about jumping ahead, I know. And he said, we needeth it. Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob sojourned to Succoth, and built an house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. Now, you're going to have references to Succoth all through the Old Testament. I mean, it's a well-known, it means the place of the booths. And what I can't help notice that it starts out, the first time at Succoth, they build booths for animals, but when they lead the Exodus and go to Succoth, they built the booths for them. Then Succoth actually becomes a part of one of the feast days. It's the second part of so Succoth is a big deal, and it's an interesting place. A lot of things happen around Succoth and in the area of Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. And when he came from Padanaram and pitched his tent before the city, he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected an altar and called it El Israel. Okay. Now, I want you to remember this guy Shechem, and that's where we're going to stop tonight, because the next chapter gets pretty in-depth. But one of their brothers, we're going to run into what I call one of the grittiest chapters you're going to find actually in the Bible, pretty much when it comes to just how people can behave. Okay? Now, next week, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the situation, because there's little sisters getting ready to get raped in the next chapter. I think it's the next one. Yeah, 34, I believe. All right. And two of the brothers don't take it so good. And it's a really interesting story what happens. I told Roman that everybody dies, but they don't kill quite everybody. But it's really kind of interesting what happens. But what I think is the most interesting is what does God actually say about what they did. Because what it is pretty tough, you know. But we'll work that all out next week. All right. And I'm really tired and had to stutter through that when you can tell. But anyway, you guys have a good night, and the same with all you.